This is the updated version of the Nissan Juke. There's three versions of price. One starts at 34,000 and the SV Premium, which this one is 37,000 euros. So a walk of 3 grand from the entry to the top level. Now, I've been spoiled by e-power from Nissan over the last couple of months, driving the X-Trail and the new version of the Qashqai in e-power. This is a hybrid, so if you imagine how Toyota self-charging hybrid works, this is a HEV. Similar thing, petrol engine, recharges a very small lithium-ion battery in it. That means that up to a certain point you'll have a little bit of EV power, pulling away from lights and stuff like that. It's a very smooth affair, but ultimately it is still a petrol engine that charges the battery, so you never need to plug it in or anything like that. So I'm going to jump behind the camera now, give you a tour of the car in detail, show you some of the functions of it. It is an automatic, so if you're interested in that, a lot of cars these days are automatics because of hybrids, and they're just cheaper to make these days, and they're not as inefficient as they once were, of course. We'll get into the drive a little bit later on. I'll show you the boot and all the things that you might need to consider if this is on your shortlist for your next car. So we'll start with the exterior of the Juke. You still have those, I always think of hot cross buns with those daytime running light headlights on the front of it. The grille is glossy and black. It's a much cleaner looking front nose compared to, I know this, this generation of the Juke has been around a couple of years now, but certainly compared to the last one, it has a much more aggressive looking front on it. We've got these little black sills down here that just give it that rugged look that a lot of kind of crossover vehicles have. I don't think even the alloys have changed in the last couple of years. They're on this optional trim spec of the car. Bit of black, bit of diamond cut. Hybrid going on here, just to remind you that it is a self-charging hybrid. This version has got a 360 camera, which means there's loads of safety spots, including a blind spot in these mirrors here, which are great for just avoiding obstacles and traffic. You see the little marker there for that. You have keyless entry, so you just pop the button here and away you go. Something that will be a little bit prohibitive for certain size of children. So that's the height of the car. And here is your grab handle to open the door, so you have to reach up there, very like the Toyota CHR, which has a similar vibe going on. Again, the two-tone colours, make it pretty classy looking affair. It's it certainly has a premium look about it. So back of the Juke, again, very different to the previous generation of it. Squats down, much more flared here over the sides, and again, another hybrid badge. I mean, there's no point doing these things if you're not going to shout about it. I suppose that's the way of looking at it. And your fuel port, which doesn't require any charging. So again, self-charging hybrid, just petrol, no need for anything else. Boot of the Juke then. Boot of the Juke is okay. Of this type of car, it actually seems generous. Plenty of space for things. You've got a fairly flat floor going on here, so if you do want to drag things in and out, under there you've got an actual spare wheel and a jack. Jacks. You get a little Nissan safety pack with all their cars as well. And obviously you can just drop these seats down with a very simple twist of a button here, and there they go. And you can drop your rear bench and get even more space in the boot of your Note. And you can get even more space then if you need it in the back of your Juke. Now when it does come to the rear of this car, I feel like it has a bit more interior space than the CHR. It doesn't feel as cramped for headspace in here. So, there's still a great bit of height in there. That just the design of the CHR just means that it kind of cramps down a little bit too much. These are very cool. I like them. They just remind me of something far more powerful, far more buckety, but I like that they've stuck them into the Juke. And you have little kind of quilted patterns going on your seats here too. Down here you'll get USB charging for one. A little storage area to pop your phone or whatever while you're doing that charging. The leg and knee room, that seat is adjusted for my seating position. I wouldn't say it's vast. It's alright. There is space for your shoes and your feet, alright. You'll stick them under, but depending on how tall your driver is, it could get a little bit tight here. For the headspace though, I don't think anyone could kind of moan too much about that. It's alright for this size of car. Again, they're never going to be the tallest for roof height in them. Do let me know as well if you prefer these type of POV reviews where you get to see an awful lot of just the interior space and how much kind of room there is for everything. So you have a really high quality graphics display for your nav, for your just general screen. It's easy to use with shortcut buttons for lots and lots of things. I do think the general layout of the car is fairly modern. It's a standard Nissan steering wheel. The screen is perhaps a little bit smaller than what you get in a Qashqai, but you know, it's the same software behind it all. Plenty of stuff to store things in, and you know, nooks and crannies. Good armrest there to support you on your drive, long drive, using your Pro Pilot and just resting that arm and elbow. So I think it's I mean, it's quite a dark black plasticky place to exist, but quality of stuff that they've used is fairly impressive. So you've got this 1.6 litre hybrid engine, and it works in the same way that you would expect a normal small battery hybrid to work. That is, it's generally charging the battery, but as soon as you go beyond maybe 50 kilometers an hour, you're just running on petrol. So there's no EV mode left, and if you try and engage EV mode, it will say EV mode not available or something like that. So e-pedal, that comes with the car. You press that and straight away you'll feel this resistance on the wheels, and you just feel it pulling, so you don't even come up to a set of lights, so you don't need to engage the brake. The car will do the stopping for you. It's a very relaxing way to drive indeed. The fuel economy is averaging around 7 litres per 100 kilometres. Probably would expect to see that lower. For example, in a Toyota, you'd get about 5.5 litres. So there is room for improvement there. There's no doubt. When you do need the power and you accelerate a bit, it's not as whiny as some traditional self-charging hybrids can be. There isn't this big harshness. If you floor it, there is a little bit, but in the slower moving traffic, it'll be ticking over in EV mode, so it means it's totally silent. There's no jerkiness when you're moving between starts and stops in heavy traffic, things like that. It's a much quieter affair. If you value comfort over style, stay away from the 19-inch alloy wheels because there's less profile on the tires, so things do get a little bit bumpy. Now there's times here where the car's kind of labouring to change, and it's a bit of a sluggish reaction to what should probably be a little bit quicker. Not all the time, but just sometimes at certain speeds, the car is not quite sure where it needs to be in terms of gears. It's a nice low down seating position behind the wheel of the Juke, so you do have a little kind of sense of something a bit sporty, dare I say it, going on. Just you're quite low to the ground, steering is light and direct. Full tank of fuel will get you somewhere between 500 and 600 kilometers. It's not the biggest fuel tank in the world, not the biggest car in the world either. Fuel economy doing about 6.5 litres per 100 kilometers. You'll better that depending on how much electric battery you're using, hybrid power you're using, and if you're doing a motorway drive, for example, you'll use a bit more fuel. A little bit of wind noise around the pillars, and it's typical driving dynamics of this kind of size of car. I can't overestimate though, it is quite low down. There's a Cougar going by me, it's good bit higher up. Obviously, a Qashqai is a bit higher up. So if you want that higher seating position, that will probably rule out the Juke for you because, well, just some of the other cars from Nissan, the Aria and the Qashqai are just much higher seating positions. The emergency brake assist, which is on the front of the car, is excellent. That will spot anything that you, or the car thinks you're about to hit, whether you are or you're not, but it gives you a heads up if you're distracted, which is always good. Yeah, the main criticism for me just is sometimes the gearbox isn't quite sure where it wants to be. It's hanging on for a change, and then it will change. But by and large, it's either sitting in eco mode or charge, or just above charge. So it's rare enough that you're actually having to floor it and extract a lot of power from the car. And as I mentioned earlier on, it's very, like, the steering is light and very, very direct. It really has there's kind of a sporty sense to the steering that you probably a little bit unexpected perhaps. It's like you turn it and it's really, really darty and direct. And if you like that kind of steering in a car, very little body roll, like suspension handles it well, it's not uncomfortable, but you know, throwing it around like this is actually all right. Not that you do that, but it's my job to test these things. By and large, Juke is a nippy little thing, great kind of city car. Boot's not massive, but there's enough to keep you going, depending on how big a boot you need, I suppose. And yeah, it's a great roundabout place. I mean, rear space is fine. I think if you had teenagers or grown adults constantly in the back, it might be a little bit of a shortcoming there, but for smaller kids, you'll be quite all right. I don't know if people are going to consider the Juke for a four-person family car, because just between the rear legroom and the boot, there might be enough space. You might want something a little bit bigger. But if you're not regularly carrying four, if the kids have flown the nest, or you're a younger person who doesn't have all these responsibilities, then it'll be the perfect car for you to get around town in. And it looks good. It is a funky looking thing. It's a serious improvement over the last model, which is a lot more curvy. Get this in a bright colour with the alloys, and forgo the comfort of the suspension. Then you've got a funky little car indeed, which will probably be often confused with the CHR from Toyota. They really do look very, very similar in today's market of the two cars, today's versions of the two cars. So just some of my thoughts on the revised version of the Nissan Juke. I can't help but think about the Toyota CHR in so many ways, not least of all including those handles on the rear. Now I will say that definitely is more space in the back, just head height and everything. Just doesn't feel as kind of claustrophobic as the CHR. But here's the thing. So if you get to this price of €37,000, you're getting very close to a Qashqai, or certainly an ex-demo Qashqai, which is ultimately a bigger car. It's going to be more sellable down the road because everyone wants a Qashqai. They always have done. And it's, you know, it's physically a bigger car. There's more space in the boot. So that's the kind of danger point for me with the Juke, is the more spec you go, and it is nice to have all the bits, but you're just getting a little bit too close to that Qashqai price point, in my opinion. So maybe you don't want a car that big, maybe you're an older couple or something like that and you don't need all the space anymore, and this is for the shops and the odd trip to relatives and whatever you might do during the week, and this car is fine because you don't want to go as big as a Qashqai and you'd rather have the extra toys on a slightly smaller car. So I do appreciate that perspective of it as well. Great safety stuff on it, you know, really well ahead of quite a lot of brands in terms of how much safety stuff you get for that €37,000 price point. So an interesting one. I certainly don't think you see anywhere near as many Jukes on the road as you do with the previous generation, and I don't know exactly why that is. Is there just more competition? Again, is the Qashqai just too good and people are prepared to spend a little bit extra to get into that? Not sure, but I think it's actually a more improved offering on the last Juke. It's just a little bit strange you don't see as many on the road. Anyway, thank you very much for coming with me this far in the video. If you have any comments or questions for me or other owners of Jukes this generation, are you on your third Juke? Are you a Juke family? Do let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.